Lebanon stands at a critical crossroads following the fragile ceasefire agreement with Israel. Beyond the immense economic challenges and the staggering costs of reconstruction, the country faces significant political hurdles, including the need to rebuild trust in its institutions and navigate deep internal divisions. Compounding these issues is the ongoing security threat, as Israel's repeated violations of the ceasefire test Lebanon's stability and political unity in this delicate period. Welcome to our special coverage for today.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Lebanon's national news agency has reported that 4 Israeli tanks have entered the western side of the border village of Qnews. The agency also confirmed that an Israeli artillery shelling on the outskirts of Markaba and Talousa. The Israeli occupation army has warned Lebanese citizens against returning to 20 villages that were previously untouched during its ground operations in southern Lebanon. Army spokesperson Afichaya Drei issued a broader warning on X, ordering citizens to avoid 62 villages across the 500 square kilometer area in the south. Joining us to analyze the latest developments in Lebanon is Brigadier General Taqiyuddin al-Tanir, a strategic expert from Beirut. Welcome to Qnews, sir. And we would like to start about asking you, how serious are Israel's current violations of the ceasefire agreement?
Good evening. Thanks for having me on your TV channel. Thanks for your expert team, and thanks for your people who you are invitation today, and thanks for audience and listeners. As a matter of fact, let us talk about a fragile ceasefire. It's not a ceasefire, it's a fragile ceasefire, while Israeli enemies and troops are bombing from aircraft and shelling from artillery and cannons some definite villages and towns in all South Lebanon, even in heavy machine fire. As a matter of fact, I would like to tell you that if they will not put an end to these violations, it will be a very dangerous consequences at the early soon. Mm-hmm. I'm asking, where is the member of the Fifth Monetary observing the ceasefire? We didn't listen anything till now from it.
So what messages is Israel attempting to send through these violations, in your opinion?
I think because they are not taking in consideration this ceasefire or agreement or what they say, and other things, I don't know. Maybe they are waiting to see the reaction of the other part in order to build on it that they are continuing their killing and bombing all Lebanese territory.
Brigadier General al-Tanir, do you expect the agreement to hold amid the mutual accusations of breaches from both Israel and Hezbollah?
After 3 days, as you I think till now the violation is only from one side. The Israeli enemy troops, and even from heavy machines.
Sir, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently stated that the ceasefire in Lebanon does not signal the end of the war. How do you assess these remarks in the context of the ongoing breach accusations?
Yeah, it's up to him. I think that many pressure on him accused him to that acceptance of ceasefire, but in his own profiles, on his own plans, maybe he needs too many other things he didn't achieve yet. And I think maybe he started to make these violations in order to see the reaction of the other part.
Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. That was Brigadier General Taqiyuddin Al-Tanir, strategic expert from Beirut. Now, after 14 months of relentless conflict, a U.S. brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah has taken effect, prompting thousands of displaced Lebanese people to return to their homes. However, the truce's fragility is evident, with both sides accusing each other of violations and many returnees finding their homes reduced to rubble. As the Lebanese army and UN peacekeepers work to maintain peace, the nation's future hangs in the balance. Let's delve deeper into the unfolding situation.
Following a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, thousands of forcibly displaced citizens from southern Lebanon have begun to return home amidst ongoing concerns about the stability of the truce. The ceasefire, which took effect early Wednesday, was brokered by the U.S. and is intended to provide a 60-day window for both Israeli and Hezbollah forces to withdraw from the area. In the wake of the ceasefire, heavy traffic was reported on highways leading from Beirut to southern Lebanon as families sought to return after months of displacement. The UN Refugee Agency reported that over 900,000 people had fled their homes due to intense Israeli bombing. Despite the ceasefire, Israeli military spokesperson Avichai Adrai announced a curfew in southern Lebanon, restricting movement of residents north of the Litani River, who are prohibited from traveling south until there is a full withdrawal of Israeli forces. Meanwhile, Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has urged displaced residents to return to their homes despite extensive destruction. Moreover, the Lebanese army has increased its presence in the south to monitor compliance with the ceasefire agreement. In Israel, residents from northern communities are also hesitant to return, fearing that the ceasefire may not hold. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed that one of the aims of the truce was to allow citizens to safely return to areas threatened by conflict. As the ceasefire comes into force, the future remains uncertain for the displaced, who fear that it won't last.
Israel's military has warned the public to avoid evacuated areas near the Lebanon border in the northern Galilee region. The occupation military warned that unexploded ordnance could still be present and advised the public to stay out of restricted areas, allowing security forces to carry out their operations. Meanwhile, residents of Nabatiya in southern Lebanon have begun returning to their homes after the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Amid widespread destruction, homeowners and business owners are assessing the severe damage caused by Israeli strikes in the heavily impacted city. And joining us to discuss the prospects for Lebanon after the war is Mr. Eli Yeshua, an expert in economic affairs. Welcome, Mr. Yeshua. Now, in your opinion, what is the estimated cost of the reconstruction efforts and what sources can Lebanon rely on to fund this massive undertaking?
In fact, Lebanon, for over half a century, has witnessed cascading wars and waves of instability. And ever since the year 2020, as well, we have been suffering from different crises, from the historic bankruptcy of Lebanese banks all the way to the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, and all the way as well to the blast of the Beirut port, and lastly, the recent war between Lebanon and Israel that has made Lebanon incur terrible losses. In fact, tens of thousands of houses and buildings now got demolished, and we have as well huge numbers of displaced persons. As well, the fertilization of the agricultural land in the south is something that is going to put a toll on the Lebanese state, because the Israeli occupation forces have pounded the agricultural land in South Lebanon with phosphorus bombs. And so the losses we have incurred so far are going to hinder our national GDP, and we are going to incur $18 million. In fact, if our expected or projected GDP for 2024 was $18 million, and we have incurred a loss that is estimated to be $18 million as well, that means we have created no progress at all. And this is not the first opportunity that we have not seized as Lebanese people. In fact, over the half a century that I have talked to you about, we as Lebanese nationals have pervaded all countries of the world. You wouldn't find a specific country in the world that does not have a Lebanese community in diaspora. And why did that happen? This is a result of the cascading wars and crises that the Lebanese state has gone through. Now, regarding the financing for reconstruction operations subject, this is going to create a huge problem for us. And right now, and up until this moment, I cannot tell you which entity is going to incur the financing for reconstruction operations in order to offset the damage, the loss and damage in Lebanon. Up until now, we don't have a single entity that can incur this responsibility. It's just Iran that just, orally expresses its preparedness to finance these reconstruction operations, but this is not at all something we can count on. And let me give you another example right now about something very important. We have persons that have lost their households and at the same time lost their deposited money in Lebanese banks. So how could these Lebanese nationals right now pay for the reconstruction of their own households or private property? Right now, the Lebanese people is surrounded by cascading challenges, and they have no access to water, to public hygiene services, or even sanitation. And on top of that, they cannot pay for the reconstruction of their own private properties that got demolished during the war. And right now, even displaced persons don't even have hosting centers that can accommodate them. And, when the ceasefire got announced at 4 a.m., we found tons of vehicles flocking towards the south. these are just people trying to look at their demolished houses. And of course, they found nothing but rubble. They were just trying to scout a place in order for them to establish or set up some kind of a camp in order to, live there. But the tons that were flocking towards the south, a big chunk of those, we found them returning right now to hosting centers once more. Why? Because they discovered that there's nothing there but rubble. There is no possibility for them to cultivate an agricultural land or to dwell in a fully demolished house. And so the losses are actually unthinkable. And, today, earlier, I said in one of my statements that we cannot take initiative towards the continuation of a war. And all we can do is just to defend ourselves in case we got attacked.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the agenda of the Hezbollah party is something that is not congruent with the higher interests of the Lebanese state.
So, sir, from what you're saying, beyond the reconstruction, what will be the state's top priorities to stabilize and revive the Lebanese economy?
Are you talking about the Lebanese state?
Yes.
Property? Most, we need access to water. We need capital. We need capital and we need financing that is no less than $20 million. Once more, we as well need to have a state that has strong, potent, effective institutions that can counter corruption in the ruling authority and in governmental bodies. We cannot at all anymore tolerate the embezzlement carried out by Lebanese officials and the different corrupt practices that we observe carried out in Lebanese formal agencies. We in Lebanon need to be more or to have more integrity and to steer away from corruption and embezzlement in order to be able to mobilize investment capitals. In fact, we have to have once more a Lebanese state that has strong institutions that abide by the law and by provisions of legitimacy. As well, we need to elect a whole new parliament in Lebanon because the current parliament cannot at all do anything effective, and the Lebanese officials that we know right now what they have been doing, we cannot keep them in power anymore because they gave us a legacy of warfare, of bankruptcy, and of complete demolishing of different infrastructure in the Lebanese state. And so what we need is more faces, more officials to be appointed in governmental positions, people that have integrity and have a sense of belonging to the Lebanese state in order for us to be able to rebuild our country and to create progress in Lebanon. Once more, our diaspora, Lebanese communities are pervading all countries of the world right now because they fled their country as they cannot live in their own state. We cannot keep counting on them to finance our national projects because the governmental bodies of Lebanon are replete with corrupt officials. In fact, we need to disseminate information, credible, verified, and trusted information on different online platforms in order to mobilize capital given to us from these Lebanese nationals in diaspora. They can definitely help financing our projects, but if they can trust that their money is going to be poured in the formal, appropriated channels.
Okay, sir, I want to elaborate more on the economic dimension of the issue. So which economic sectors have been most severely impacted by the war, in your own opinion?
Most of our economic sectors got afflicted by these crises, except for the sector of food and pharmaceutical industries. In fact, we were just consuming food and pharmaceutical industries, and there was no problem with this sector. But the industrial production regressed by 90%, and tourism plummeted all the way to zero. We have no tourism whatsoever. And the retail trade as well plummeted significantly. And the consumption demand was only restricted to food and pharmaceutical industries. And so we don't have any kind of economic progress whatsoever because, you know, we are right now afflicted by war. And in a time of war, people need just to get by and to just, you know, take their medications and have some food to sustain themselves. But even I would say that food and pharmaceutical products were not provided for every single person in Lebanon because, you know, we have a lot of people in Lebanon that have lost their lifetime savings in the collective bankruptcy of Lebanese banks. In fact, the governor of the Lebanese Central Bank got an apprehension decree issued for himself, but he was not prosecuted, and this is completely illegal to happen. The national GDP of 2024 is in fact zero, I would say.
Sir, you talked a lot, you elaborated on the corruption, internal corruption. So how can Lebanon rebuild trust in its institutions and also strengthen governance to prevent future crises?
Most, we need to elect a president for Lebanon that is an efficient president and somebody who is cognizant of socio-economic issues, and we need to as well have a president that is eloquent in his diplomacy and somebody who can establish and formulate some kind of a skilled foreign policy. And this president needs to establish a government that has strong qualified calibers. Without this kind of executive authority, Lebanon will never make progress. And right now, the ceasefire agreement, regarding the ceasefire agreement, the new between Israel and Lebanon needs to be respected by the new Lebanese government that is going to be formed after the election of a new president for Lebanon. This is something completely necessary in order to ensure the prevalence of security in Lebanon. After that, we have to look into other subjects like the reconstruction of the Lebanese and the reform of the Lebanese judiciary. As well, different electricity grids and water plants need to be established. And we need to open and establish new corridors and roads and infrastructure projects. And of course, all these projects will need financing mobilized by the private sector. It's not just the public sector that is going to incur all these financial responsibilities.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Elias Shouai, expert in economic affairs. Thank you very much for your valuable insights. And that wraps up our special coverage for today. Thanks very much for watching, and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.